Teenagers leave local authority care. Young people who've already suffered loss and hardship spent time in care homes and foster placements, away from the stable family life that most of us take for granted. But when they turn 18, these young people whose lives have been so disrupted are expected to start fending for themselves, living independently, managing their own money, and all too often the support they need just isn't there. Well, in a moment, we're going to be talking to Jade McMahon and Jamal Walker-Bailey, who both appeared in our special documentary, along with Kelly Robinson, director of Independent Together, who support many young care leavers in the Manchester area. But first, let's hear some of the stories from our care leavers.
Went from my nana's to an emergency care home, from the emergency care home to a foster placement, from there to a hostel. I went from that hostel to another emergency care home. It's just gone, right, I'm this person, and then 2 weeks later, I'm getting a new worker going, right, I'm this person, I'm your worker. 3 weeks later, I'm this person, I'm your worker. And it got to the point where I snapped.
He's now 6. Oh, 6 now.
Jade spent her childhood moving around the care system. She can remember more than 20 placements.
He's gorgeous, isn't he?
She and her boyfriend Anthony are determined to give Harrison a stable family life out of care.
Cuts of me being in the system, if I don't deal with them, they're going to bleed onto him. Do you know what I mean? And that's like with my dad, that's like part of the reason I ended up in the system.
Because your dad was in care?
Because my dad was in care, and then social services were involved. There was one night when they come and they took me and my brother, but I was only about 2. And my dad had put me to sleep, and I woke up and my dad wasn't there. Do you know what I mean? And I said it to him last night, the reason I can't sleep at night is in case I go to sleep and he's not there.
Kelly wants to introduce me to Jamal.
His story's just heartbreaking. He doesn't understand why he'd been taken away from his mum. So he just became a naughty boy because he didn't think anybody cared or anybody loved him.
Well, obviously my mum was in the shower, innit, and then I just heard her screaming, and then they just drove us away, innit? That was it. Like, I'm the man, like, do you know what I mean? I'm the only boy, so, but being young and not being able to protect my family, like, that's left me, like, obviously, like, yeah, I'm like, do you know what I mean? That's why I was probably so, like, violent and that. You just bury it, don't you? Do you know what I mean? And move on. That's what people expect you to do because it's in your childhood and that, do you know what I mean?
But talking about his childhood is bringing back painful memories Jamal can't suppress.
You want a minute? Cuddle me.
They just try to treat me, yeah? Like I'm so trying mum's life, yeah? I won't raise my own like a Trump move. My mum, yeah, she raised us properly and that.
And we can speak to Jamal there. We saw you getting really upset there. I mean, how did you feel watching that back?
All right, to be honest. Not surprised and that.
I mean, you get frustrated by the system itself. Why is that?
Because I know the system's wrong.
And what are some of your frustrations? I mean, you've been in care for most of your life, haven't you?
Yeah.
Remind us what happened to you.
Basically, when I was really young, I lived with my family. From my point of view, everything was normal because I didn't know anything else different. And when I was 3 years old, my dad left, and that wasn't probably the best time for my family at that time. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, my mum couldn't really cope properly. She had 4 kids. She ended up getting a new boyfriend. Domestic violence got involved in the household. My mum was ringing the police for help, and that the police used to come around. They wouldn't do nothing. He used to just get off when the police come, and when they come back, when they left, he'd come back. Do you know what I mean? Carry on the violence. Got to the point where my mum started hitting us to deal. I don't know. She just did it all of a sudden. That's how she was dealing with it. She started getting aggressive, started getting angry, stressed all the time. She changed as a person. You know, we go in school, my behaviour was different. The teachers noticed. One day I went into school with a mark on me. They asked me what happened. I said my mum hit me, and then that was it, innit?
And then you went into care.
Yeah.
And what happened there?
Well, when I went into care, like, basically, they just took us randomly one day. we were just chilling, me and my sisters chilling, normal day. Bare police turned up, social workers took us. We fell asleep because we was on a journey for ages, and when we woke up, we was in like the countryside and that. Do you know what I mean? And then there was some strangers, and then that was it. Then we moved from there after about a year, went to my Auntie Bev's. Then they split us all up. We all went to different foster placements and stuff. I went to care homes. I started breaking the law. I got kicked out of every school. Do you know what I mean? That was it, innit? Just that on repeat until I got a bit older.
Jamal, hugely traumatic. And Jade, you've got your own story as well. I mean, what happened to you?
Well, in the early days, it was me, my big brother, my mum and my dad. But due to my mum's drug use, the social workers said that my mum had to leave the family home. So me and my brother was in my dad's care full time. But my brother was autistic, and I was a really difficult baby because I was withdrawing from drugs when I was born. So my dad had quite a job on his hands at the time, and he struggled. So we ended up going into the system, me and my brother. But after they helped my dad, he made some changes, so they let us go home. But this time when we went home, my mum was in jail, so it was still just my dad. And he was doing all right for about a week, and then again he began to struggle because by this time my other sister was born, so we had three of us. And then we went back in the system, then we come home, and then we went in the system full time after that. We was put up for adoption, me and my youngest brothers and sisters on 2 occasions, but both times that fell through. But we was all in a solid 6-year placement. My brother was in a solid 11-year one. We used to see each other every weekend, so it wasn't up until I was 12, it wasn't that bad my time in the system. But once I turned 12 and my brother come home, I wanted to go home. I wanted to be with my brother because it was stopping my contact with him. So that's when I started breaking my placements down, and then ended up in the care homes, and then ended up in a semi-independent accommodation, and then ended up with Keller and the company with my own house.
And you have now left care, of course.
Yes.
And you're now a young adult. How's that been?
Well, I turned 18 in December, so I was becoming an adult, and then in February I had my little boy, so I've had to grow up pretty fast because he's like nearly 3 months old now.
And we saw him in the film, didn't we, Harrison? Yeah. I mean, it also makes you think of somebody else now, because you've got someone else to think about as well, haven't you?
Yeah, all the time. Especially with him getting bigger as well now. He's awake a lot more of the time, so he needs a lot more attention and a lot more just time than what he did when he was younger and he was asleep most of the time.
I mean, do you think you've had enough support then, Jade?
Yeah. Since when I joined Kelly anyway, I had a lot more support than what... Because even when I was living in my semi-independence, that was 24-hour staff there all the time, but there still wasn't the same amount of support, even though they was in the building 24/7. It was a lot harder to be able to actually get a staff member to come sit down with you, speak to you and help you sort things out.
Sounds like a positive experience for you then, Jade. Yeah. And Jamal, since you've left the care system, how's it been for you?
Probably the best time of my life so far, innit? To be honest, I've always felt trapped being in care. So now as an adult, I'm not in care no more, like legally. Just do me properly, innit? No one to tell me what to do, or I get to live life the way I want to live it, not the way anyone else wants me to live it. And
Kelly, you've facilitated some of this freedom for these two here.
Yeah.
You make yourself available 24 hours a day, and now that doesn't happen for everybody, and not all support care providers, offer that service. I mean, you see these. They are still effectively children, young adults, if you like. They're still very young people, aren't they?
Our family.
But they're like your family, aren't they? You treat them like your kids.
Yeah, all our team are exactly the same. We're all here because we all serve a purpose to try and help them lead a better life, and we want to support them to know what to do in an emergency, whether it's 3 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Every one of our team is, supports them exactly the same, and that's the most important part. Is they've not been shown the independent skills to be able to carry on into adult life, and that's what we're trying to teach them.
Well, I want all three of you to stay with us. We're going to pause there for a minute, but one of the things our documentary did highlight was the issues with care leavers and universal credit. It is the main form of financial support when care leavers turn 18, but they are 5 times more likely to face sanctions than anyone else. 4 of the 5 care leavers we met had issues with it, and this is Liberty's story.
We've come to meet Liberty, who's just turned 18. Care leavers can prepare their universal credit application in advance, so it's ready to submit on their 18th birthday. Then they have the standard 5-week wait for their first payment. Liberty's asked us not to show his face, so his support worker Paige explains the shock when the money just didn't appear. There was no warning, and now his food's running out.
I've had to ring up Universal Credit and find out why, and it was due to a misunderstanding about an appointment. So Liberty had been to so many but missed one, and this one wasn't even on his journal.
So Liberty has had to restart his claim from scratch. He's already waited 5 weeks for money. Now he'll have to wait another 5.
Liberty, where will you get money from for the rest of this month then?
I don't know really yet. I feel like that's always a challenge ahead to try and go past it, but I am trying my best to try and do it.
You seem like a really positive person.
Yeah, it's got to be positive in these situations, not being
Yeah.
best you can do.
We've got quite a few sofas, different tables. Yeah, we'll get you some rugs.
Liberty did get an advance payment to tide him over the first 5 weeks, but he can't claim another one. And when his universal credit payments do start, he'll have to start repaying the loan at £30 a month. As with so many care leavers, he's starting his adult life off in debt.
Kelly, we saw Liberty's story there. Through no fault of his own, he was sanctioned because he missed a meeting that he hadn't been told about. I mean, is this what you see quite often?
Yeah, we see it all the time. And I mean, Liberty actually didn't get a payment until the 3rd of May. So in actual fact, it ended up being a little bit longer than the initial 5 weeks, and then the second's a lot of 5 weeks.
And so in that case, what effect does that have on him?
A huge effect. He's got no money to live on. And obviously, when it comes to like food banks and things like that, you can only use them 3 times in 1 month. And all it is basically a Tesco's carrier bag. And they don't take into consideration his diet or any, special needs that he has or anything like that. Yeah. So, so he finds it really difficult. So we have to help out much more than we should do, really.
That certainly was a shock for me. I didn't even know that you could only use food banks 3 times a month. Jamal, talk to me about the problems you found with Universal Credit, because I think you've had a few issues as well, haven't you?
Yeah, Universal Credit, it's just headache. It's just headache, that's all it is.
Why a headache then?
Because they just sanction you and sanction you and sanction you, and like it's just the way it's set, it doesn't make sense. They make it really difficult for you to even. They want to make it as difficult for a person as possible to consistently get money off them. Do you know what I mean? So the more money you get off them, the more appointments they give you, and stuff.
So with that in mind, are you suggesting that the system needs to be a bit more flexible?
Yeah, I just think it's just designed in a way where it's nothing personal between the people in the job centre and the people they're giving the money to. It's just a way to systematically give out £250 a month and just be like...
What people might not understand about you as well, you also have a job, you have other commitments, so you can't always attend these appointments, is that right?
Yeah, well, basically, I've done college courses, I've done, volunteering and stuff to get my CV up and stuff like that, and while you're doing that, if you don't let them know that you're doing that, or if you don't let them know the correct way, or the dates are not right, then they'll stop your money, innit?
Gosh. Jade, since you've become a mum, we saw your little boy Harrison, money must feel even more important now, hey?
Yeah, but I've always been really good at budgeting my money, so I don't really struggle that much, really, with my Universal Credit, because I've always budgeted my money tightly. So I kind of get everything that I need for the month and then put everything else away. So it's either there for the next month or it's there at the end of the month when things do start running out. But when I come back to Manchester and I moved in with my dad, he taught me a lot about not having money. So watching my dad not have money and have to look after my little sister, it kind of taught me how to budget like right to the 1p kind of thing.
I don't know about you, but to think that care leavers are 5 times more likely to be sanctioned than any other claimants, that really shocked me.
Yeah.
I think it's obvious because people that have been in care have got like mental health issues, got loads of different issues, anxiety, depression, all that. Do you know what I mean? There's job centre don't take that into consideration. It's nothing personal. It's all done through computers, most of it, and stuff like that. So
this idea as well, the Department of Work and Pensions saying that sanctions motivate claimants. I mean, what do you make of that?
I don't.
That's ridiculous.
So the fact that they're sanctioning you, that's going to spur you on and you know, motivate you even more.
Nothing surprises me anymore with the government and that. After what I've been through with them, it's not going to be surprising me. They're so tight-fisted. They get paid. Whoever sets the rules to say, oh, you can live off £250 a month, that's what you can legally live on. Yeah, that's the minimum. You can survive off that. But they could never survive off that, the people that set them rules. If they ever got told you have to live off £250 a month, they wouldn't know what to do with themselves.
And that's the thing, isn't it, Joe? People are having to budget. You said you budget yourselves, but do you think there should be a cap on the sanctions that they should have for younger claimants, let's say?
Well, yeah, because as Jamal just said, if they're saying that you can live on 250 quid, which is the minimum, why are they sanctioning it so that you're getting even less than that and then still expecting you to be able to live for that month? It's not going to happen, really.
One of the things that this documentary didn't have time to say was actually that you are an A-star student. I'm going to embarrass you now, you wanted to become a doctor at one point in your life. I mean, am I right in thinking you wanted to go to Cambridge?
Yeah, it was a bit more than just a doctor. It was a trauma doctor. I wanted to be on the helicopters, because I wanted to be a paramedic, but I wanted to take it to another level so it weren't just a paramedic. And that was where I wanted to go.
And is that something you might go back to?
Yeah, 100%. I ain't giving up on that, no way. But at the moment, it's about getting Harrison back into nursery school before I can actually start doing all that again. But I'll get there.
You definitely will, I'm sure.
5-year plan.
And Jamal, what are your hopes for the future?
I just want to be healthy, be happy, be free. And that's why to be honest.
And why shouldn't you be? Thank you very much. Well, still to come on this 5 News Tonight special, we asked the Children's Minister whether the system is failing those it's supposed to protect. Well, before the break, we heard about the problems care leavers face with the universal credit system. We asked for ministers from the Department of Work and Pensions who oversee it to come on and talk to us about it, but they declined. They did give us a statement, though. We provide a comprehensive package of support and protections for care leavers, including working closely with local authorities to help care leavers set up their universal credit claim in advance of them leaving care when they turn 18. Every job centre in the UK has a member of staff to provide care leavers with assistance, and our partner, Citizens Advice Help to Claim, offers additional tailored and practical support. We are committed to providing personalised support for all claimants, including vulnerable groups, and making reasonable adjustments where needed. But the Children's Minister, Nadhim Zahawi, did agree to talk to us, and our chief correspondent, Tessa Chapman, went along to meet him earlier.
As part of our investigation, we found 8 in 10 local authorities in England are overspending on support for care leavers. They're dipping into their reserves. How can we expect them to give the support that care leavers need when they don't have enough money?
Well, we are coming up, obviously, to the spending review, and my job as the Children and Families Minister, responsible for children's social care, is to work with the sector, with local authorities, directors of children's services, chief executives, to, one, understand the pressures on children's social care, whether it's population growth or the issues like alcoholism and drug abuse amongst parents of children who are taken into care, to get a really good handle of where the financial pressures are. We know there are financial pressures on the system.
So you're recognising the pressures. Can you promise then that there is more money to come?
Well, I can't make that promise at the moment. I can promise I will fight very hard for children in care, for care leavers, for children's social care in the spending review.
I want to turn to universal credit, which is something that came up again and again in our documentary. 4 out of the 5 young people that we spoke to in depth had really bad problems with universal credit. Do you think it's the right form of financial support for care leavers?
Well, we've been working very closely with the Department for Work and Pensions actually to put more help through the system, through job centres for care leavers, whether it be a jobs coach or essentially making sure that there is no delay at all if you're a care leaver in terms of getting your universal credit. All these things we can always improve, so I would very much welcome seeing any evidence where they've struggled in any way with the Department of Work and Pensions and with universal credit.
Did you know that care leavers are 5 times more likely to be sanctioned than other benefits claimants?
So I did, and my work with Justin Tomlinson, the Minister in the Department for Work and Pensions, is to look at, to make sure that actually being a care leaver means that if there is a reason for a sanction, one, it's treated sensitively, but also less of the money is taken away because of not having the bank of mum and dad to bail you out.
We've spoken to these young people who are trying to think about education, trying to think about future careers, which is, I know, something that you are really keen to instill in these young people and provide opportunities for them. But the trouble is, they've told us they are thinking about survival. They are thinking about housing pressures, about feeding themselves, about mental health issues. What are you doing for those young people who have fallen through the net before they can even think about the future?
What we've done is listen to care leavers. So through the work we've done with the Care Leaver Covenant, where we've got the Office for Students signed up so that in the access statements that universities have to deliver, they're telling us they're spending hundreds of millions of pounds.
But these are for young people who've reached that point. Some of the young people we spoke to may have had the potential, like Jade, for instance, who featured in our documentary, huge potential, but didn't finish school because of other reasons and the trauma that she'd been through and mental health issues, for example. We need to help these people earlier,
very much so, which is why the mental health assessment programme is so important, as well as the additional funds. If someone wants to sort of try again, whether not necessarily going to higher education, university, because they haven't done it as well at school, to look at a bursary for an apprenticeship, which we now deliver £1,000 if they want to go into further education, £1,200 as a bursary. I've got 75,000 children through no fault of their own, other than the accident of birth. We've had to take them away from their biological parents. So the baton of parenting is in my hand, is in the hand of the Director of Children's Services, the social workers, the personal advisors, the virtual school heads, who are there tasked to get them the best education possible. And education is a protective factor, by the way.
Finally then, Minister Zahawi, do you think right now we have a system that we can be proud of to support care leavers?
I think the system's getting better. It's nowhere near where I want it to be. If 40% are not in employment, education or training, that's not a good place to be.
And do you promise to do something about it?
Absolutely.
Well, we've now been joined by Anne Longfield, Children's Commissioner for England, along with Kelly Robinson from Independent Together. Good evening to you. The Minister told us he will fight for young people. What does he need to do?
Well, I think what we've got is too many children that are falling through the gap. They need help early, and their families need help early. I mean, talking to Jamal and Jade, both said it would have made all the difference if their families had actually got help early on, which might have meant they could stay together, which is a big shift. Make sure there's enough money in there in the system to be able to offer that support. And I know that you have lots of stories about and experience about the money being spread very thinly at the moment. But I guess the big thing is about recognising that these are really vulnerable children that actually need an experience that wraps around them and their needs. They all talked about the system, and it sometimes feels so huge that they can't find their own way in it. Lots of good people with good intentions, but somehow there's just not that personalisation that kids need.
And there's a feeling that not everybody fits in that box, huh?
Yeah, because we're talking about a big system with tens of thousands of children in it, there's processes, there's regulations and the like, all really important, but kids often sink in that. And what they want is stability, relationships. They get passed around quite a lot. Often their placements will move. Often they will move schools and the like. All of those things are hugely destabilising. And for those kids that actually need that stability, they will fall through at that point.
Kelly, the Minister told us, though, the system is getting better. I mean, is that the sort of thing that you're seeing?
No, not at all. The one thing that he did actually mention was the mental health side, but that's not being picked up early enough. There's not enough money being put into the children's mental health system, but also as when they turn 18, they just get struck off. So there needs to be something after their 18th or carrying on from a younger age over the age of 18. The mental health side is just not there.
And let's talk about the job that you do, because it's hugely challenging. You're obviously making a huge difference. I mean, talk to me about how rewarding it is.
Oh, it's fantastic. Obviously, the biggest reward is actually seeing them, move into their own property and become independent. Jade with Harrison, keeping him, away from the children's services, so it's not a cycle that's being followed again. There's nothing more rewarding.
And it's remembering that everybody's a human.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
And everybody deserves a chance in life to become as successful as they can be.
It sounds like you're making a real difference. Thank you very much to you, Kelly Robinson, and Anne Longfield. Thank you very much.